up, we are discussing farmers, hundreds of farmers and farm workers who've been protesting in London to demand more government ambition on food security, on future food and farming policy. Members of the Land Workers Alliance are calling for a right to food to be put into UK law, more government support schemes for young people and marginalised groups to enter farming, and a bigger budget for agricultural support schemes. The protest was sparked amid growing fears amongst farmers that the government's economic growth agenda will be prioritised over hard-won standards. So to give me his thoughts on this story, I'm joined by the farmer Charles Goadby. Charles, thank you very much for your time. Can you tell us a bit more about what the farmers are actually protesting in London and what they're actually calling for?
Yeah, good afternoon, Darren. So at the minute, the big fear is that the government are just looking at farming and farmland at the minute and seeing it as an opportunity for them to do more for the environment and reduce our carbon. They've pledged that the country is going to be carbon zero, and they haven't really got a clue how they're going to meet that target. So they're looking at farming and farmland as an easy way of doing that, which it is, but it's going to be at the cost of food production. And at a time when, you know, there's a food crisis out there, the cost of living crisis, we can't produce enough food. We're a country that's only 60% self-sufficient in the food. Should we be giving more of our food security up just to meet these targets?
Yeah, I mean, Charles, I wonder if you agree with me that it actually calling into question the United Kingdom's lack of energy independence, energy security, we're actually starting to see in so many respects that we do not have security of the food supply, for example, as well. Security of trade with the likes of China, of course, the pandemic exposed that as a very vulnerable tie to the Chinese Communist Party. There are so many ways in which I think the UK is having a bit of a wake-up call. Do you think that's what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw this in the pandemic as well. We have a just-in-time food system. And when things came to a halt, as they did during the coronavirus pandemic, you know, we saw the supermarket shelves going empty. And there's a real risk of seeing that again at the minute with the way food inflation and the pressures that are being put on farmers of not being able to get our own produce out there. Now, the government, you know, one of the big things for farmers at the minute is the free trade agreements that are being agreed and negotiated at the minute. We as farmers are producing some of the highest quality, you know, the highest animal welfare, environmental and sustainability standards in the world, but that comes at a cost. And we feel begrudged that the government are then saying, you know, you've got to do all this. As British farmers, this is what we're saying you have to do. But actually, we can get it a bit cheaper from over the sea, so we're just going to buy it from them and undercut you. And it's just, we just want fair play.
Well, what do you say then, Charles, to this idea that actually what will prevent that from happening is stronger labelling? So, you know, you label produce that says, you know, my whatever has come from Charles's farm. I know that Charles is a British farmer and therefore he'll have high standards of X, Y and Z. And I, as a consumer, make the choice that I want to buy British produce, which I would do, by the way. So do you reckon that would be enough to alleviate your concerns?
Certainly we need better labelling, but we need stronger control over the supermarkets and the bigger retailers, because you can just see the little tricks that are being done in the labelling, clever little tricks to make you think you're buying British when it's not, just by giving brand names and things like that. So I think as whole part of the fair trade, we're part of the farm assurance system, the red tractor, which is what they say is from farm to fork, but it's not really, it's farm to supermarket. Okay. I think to get a true farm to fork assurance scheme, we need the supermarkets involved.
Interesting
and then
stuff,
be
Charles.
To assure they give us fair trade.
I'm sure many of my viewers are totally behind you and